Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. The perfect courtier thrives in a world where everything revolves around power and political dexterity. He has mastered the art of indirection. He flatters, yields to superiors, and asserts power over others in the most oblique and graceful manner. Learn and apply the laws of courtiership, and there will be no limit to how far you can rise in the court. So we don't have courtiers anymore today, but a courtier was someone who lived in royalty and who was usually an advisor or a companion to someone with a lot of power, such as a king or queen. But to be a courtier was quite a dangerous game, because usually blame was placed on these people quite often, and they were made to walk some type of like a tightrope, having to please but not please too much, obey but somehow distinguish themselves from other courtiers, while never distinguishing yourself too far to make somebody a ruler insecure. It's a very dangerous game, but there is a lot to be learned from these individuals. They are like magicians of appearance, the magicians of manipulation. Robert says there may be no more sun kings, but there are still plenty of people who believe the sun revolves around them. The royal court may have more or less disappeared, or at least lost its power, but courts and courtiers still exist because power still exists. There is much to be learned from great courtiers, past and present. As I look over this law, I try and think of how I can relate the stories of these kings and queens and nobility who have lived hundreds of years ago, and link the dynamics of power from that to today. And I think a really good way to do it is like this. Okay, so in the modern day, this law is perfectly exemplifies the modern day workplace or a social group. So your boss acts as the king, your superiors are other nobility, and your colleagues act as other courtiers. So when I read these next 15 laws of court politics, try and think and link how those dynamics relate to your social group or your workplace. Because trust me, they do. They are very relevant. The laws of court politics. Avoid ostentation. It is never too prudent to prattle on about yourself or call too much attention to your actions. The more you talk about your deeds, the more suspicion you cause. Be careful, ever so careful in trumpeting your own achievements, and always talk less about yourself than about other people. Modesty is generally preferable. Now that links to Law 3 and 4, consider your intentions, always say less than necessary, and Law 1, which is never outshine the master. Your master, if you are in a workplace, is your boss. So that's how that relates. Law 2. Practice nonchalance. Never seem to be working too hard. Your talent must appear to flow naturally, with an ease that makes people take you for a genius. Even when something demands a lot of sweat, make it look effortless. People prefer to not see your blood and toil, which is another form of ostentation. It is better for them to marvel at how gracefully you have achieved your accomplishment than to wonder why it took so much work. Law 3. Be frugal with flattery. It may seem that your superiors cannot get enough flattery, but too much of even a good thing loses its value. It also stirs up suspicion among your peers. Learn to flatter indirectly. By downplaying your own contribution, for example, your master looks better. Law 4. Arrange to be noticed. You cannot display yourself too brazenly, yet you must also get yourself noticed. In the court of Louis XIV, whoever the king decided to look at rose instantly in the court hierarchy. You stand no chance of rising if the ruler does not notice you in the swamp of courtiers, aka the swamp of other employees. Pay attention to your physical appearance then, and find a way to create a subtly distinctive style and image. Law 5. Alter your style and language according to the person who you are dealing with. A pseudo-belief in equality, the idea that talking and acting the same way with everyone, no matter what their rank, makes you somehow a paragon of civilization. It is a terrible mistake. Those below you will take it as a form of condescension, which it is, and those above you will be offended, although they may not admit it. You must change your style and your way of speaking to suit each person. This is not lying, it is acting, and acting is an art. This is also true from a great variety of cultures found in the modern court. Never assume that your criteria of behavior and judgment are universal. Not only is the inability to adapt to another culture the height of barbarism, it puts you at a disadvantage. I think it's a very, very crucial, important law that so many people neglect. Alter your speech. You have to alter and hide certain characteristics about yourself depending on the context of who you're depending on the context, right? So depending on the demographic of who you're talking to. I'm not going to talk the same way to a 70-year-old the same way I'm going to talk to a 30-year-old. Now that's a very obvious example. Yes, we all realize that, but it's the little nuances that we don't realize. It's okay, what type of beliefs does this person hold? He's a vegan? Oh, okay, I'm going to pull back on saying this and maybe say this instead. Or I'm going to conceal my intentions and always say less than necessary, law 3 and 4, and not reveal this belief I hold about myself. Play to the context of who you're talking to, of where you are, and the demographic of who you're talking to. Law 6. Never be the bearer of bad news. The king kills the messenger who brings the bad news. This is a cliche, but there is truth to it. You must struggle and, if necessary, lie and cheat to be sure that the lot of the bearer of bad news falls on a colleague, never on you. Bring only good news and your approach will gladden your master. Law 7. Never affect friendliness and intimacy with your master. He does not want a friend for a subordinate. He wants a subordinate. Never approach him in an easy, friendly way or act as if you were on the best of terms. That is his prerogative. If he chooses to deal with you on this level, assume a way of chumminess. Otherwise, err in the opposite direction and make the distance between you clear. Law 8. Never criticize those above you directly. This may seem obvious, but there are often times when some sort of criticism is necessary. To say nothing or to give no advice would open you to risks of another sort. You must learn, however, to couch your advice and criticism as indirectly and as politely as possible. Think twice or 3 times before deciding you have made them sufficiently courteous. Err on the side of subtlety and gentleness. Law 9. Be frugal in asking those above you for favors. Nothing irritates a master more than having to reject someone's request. It stirs up guilt and resentment. Ask for favors as rarely as possible and know when to stop. Rather than making yourself the supplicant, it is always better to earn your favors so that the ruler bestows them willingly. Most important, do not ask for favors on another person's behalf, least of all our friends. And it's not just the masters in your workplace, your boss in your workplace who may have resentment towards you for asking for many favors, but it's also friends. And think about that. Close friends can also hide their resentment and ill feelings towards you if you're constantly coming to them to take something. Law 10. Never joke about appearances or taste. Avoid any kind of joke about appearance or taste, too highly sensitive areas, especially with those above you. Don't even try it when you are far away from them. You will dig your own grave. People love to talk about each other around people's backs. When I hear people doing this, which I hear often, I personally retreat. No, not retreat. I'm gonna stick by it. I retreat in the way where I am quiet, where I kind of don't say much anymore, and I just listen, because I know whatever I'm saying, whatever I say next, will be talked about next. I believe in this. If you say anything, you lose everything. You say anything, you lose everything. So, and I think you lose even by saying nothing, right? In these situations where people are talking about each other behind people's backs. But I think it's better to say nothing than to say something, really. Because if you say something, they have more to talk about with right there. They have more to grab onto and manipulate and take out of context, which happens very often. If we say nothing, then they have nothing to take. All they have is rumors. All they have is their preconceived notions, right? Which they have created on their own. Law 11. Do not be the court cynic. Express admiration for the good work of others. If you constantly criticize your equals or subordinates, some of that criticism will rub off on you, hovering over you like a grey cloud. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Do not constantly criticize your equals or subordinates. By expressing modest admiration for other people's achievements, you paradoxically call attention to your own. The ability to express wonder and amazement and seem like you mean it is a rare and dying talent, but one still greatly valued. Law 12. Be self-observant. You need a mirror for your actions. This can sometimes come from other people telling you what they see in you, but that is not the most trustworthy method. You must be the mirror, training your mirror to try and see yourself as others see you. Are you acting too obsequious? Are you trying too hard to please? Do you seem desperate for attention, giving the impression that you are on the decline? Be observant about yourself, and you will avoid a mountain of blunders. In other words, be self-aware. Self-awareness is one of the most undervalued skills in human fucking existence. I am so passionate about this idea of self-awareness that it has become my most recommended and viewed piece on Medium. And it's become that because I believe in it so much. Most people are not self-aware to understand their strengths and weaknesses, and are not self-aware to be able to see from different perspectives. Be self-observant. Law 13. Master your emotions. As an actor in a great play, you must learn to cry and laugh on command and when it is appropriate. You must be able to both disguise your anger and frustration and to fake your contentment and agreement. You must be the master of your own face. Call it lying if you like, but if you prefer to not play the game and to always be honest and upfront, do not complain when others call you obnoxious and arrogant. Now, see how this links. Mastering your emotions, being able to disguise anger and frustration, links with altering your style and language according to the person you're dealing with. Go back to it, you'll see what I'm saying. Law 14. Fit the spirit of the times. Wearing the fashions of 10 years ago is ludicrous, unless you enjoy the role of court jester. Your spirit and way of thinking must keep up with the times, even if the times offend your sensibilities. Be too forward-thinking, however, and no one will understand you. It is never a good idea to stand out too much in this area. You are best off at least being able to mimic the spirit of the times. I believe this little law can be reversed is if you're in a creative field, if you're in the arts, if you're in fashion and clothing, where I think being too forward thinking can be to your advantage. So manipulate it within the context of your faculties of the lane you're in. Law 15. Be a source of pleasure. Charm and the promise of delight will draw us like moths to a flame. Make yourself the flame and you will rise to the top. Since life is otherwise so full of unpleasantness and pleasure, so scarce, you will be indispensable as food and drink. Food and drink for other people. That's what he means. Food and drink for other people to suck on and to take. You have to be the source of this light, and people will gravitate towards you. This may seem obvious, but what is obvious is often ignored or unappreciated. There are degrees to this. Not everyone can play the role of favorite, for not everyone is blessed with charm and wit, but we can all control our unpleasant qualities and obscure them when necessary. We can all control our unpleasant qualities and obscure them when necessary. I had to say that again. Now I think this quote ties this all in very well, and why this is all very important. A man who knows the court is the master of his gestures, of his eyes, of his face. He is profound and penetrable. He dissimulates bad officers, smiles at his enemies, controls his irritation, disguises his passions, bellies his heart, speaks and acts against his feelings. Jean de la Bruyere.